Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 192. Chapter 192. Among the innumerable categories applicable to the phenomena of human life, one may discriminate between those in which substance prevails and those in which form prevails. To the latter, as distinguished from village, country, provincial, or even Moscow life, we may allot Petersburg life, and especially the life of its salons. That life of the salons is unchanging. Since the year 1805, we have made peace and had again quarreled with Bonaparte, and had made constitutions and unmade them again. But the salons of Anna Pavlovna and Helene remain just as they had been, the one 7 and the other 5 years before. At Anna Pavlovna's, they talked with perplexity of Bonaparte's successes, just as before, and saw in them, and in the subservience shown to him by the European sovereigns, a malicious conspiracy, the sole object of which was to cause unpleasantness and anxiety to the court circle of which Anna Pavlovna was the representative. And in Helene's salon, which Rumyantsev himself honored with his visits, regarding Helene as a remarkably intelligent woman, they talked the same ecstasy in 1812 as in 1808 of the great nation and the great man, and regretted our rupture with France, a rupture which, according to them, ought to be promptly terminated by peace. Of late, since the Emperor's return from the army, there had been some excitement in these conflicting salon circles and some demonstrations of hostility to one another, but each camp retained its own tendency. In Anna Pavlovna's circle, only those Frenchmen were admitted who were deep-rooted legitimists, and patriotic views were expressed to the effect that one ought not to go to the French theater, and to maintain the French troop was costing the government as much as the whole army corps. The progress of the war was most eagerly followed, and only the most flattering reports to our army were circulated. In the French circle of Helene and Rumyantsev, the reports of the cruelty of the enemy and of the war were contradicted, and all Napoleon's attempts at conciliation were discussed. In that circle, they discountenanced those who advised hurried preparations for a removal to Kazan of the court and the girls' educational establishments under the patronage of the Dowager Empress. In Helene's circle, the war in general was regarded as a series of formal demonstrations which would very soon end in peace, and the view prevailed, expressed by Bilibin, who now in Petersburg was quite at home in Helene's house, which every clever man was obliged to visit, that not by gunpowder, but by those who invented it, would matters be settled. In that circle, the Moscow enthusiasm, news of which had reached Petersburg simultaneously with the Emperor's return, was ridiculed sarcastically and very cleverly, though with much caution. Anna Pavlovna's circle, on the contrary, was enraptured by this enthusiasm, and spoke of it as Plutarch speaks of the deeds of the ancients. Prince Vasily, who still occupied his former important posts, formed a connecting link between these two circles. He visited his good friend Anna Pavlovna, as well as his daughter's diplomatic salon, and often in his constant comings and goings between the two camps became confused, and said at Helene's what he should have said at Anna Pavlovna's, and vice versa. Soon after the Emperor's return, Prince Vasily, in a conversation about the war at Anna Pavlovna's, severely condemned Barclay de Tolly, but was undecided as to who ought to be appointed commander-in-chief. One of the visitors, usually spoken of as a great man of merit, having described how he had that day been to see Kutuzov, the newly chosen chief of the Petersburg militia, presiding over the enrollment of the recruits at the treasury, consciously ventured to suggest that Kutuzov would be the man to satisfy all requirements. Anna Pavlovna remarked with a melancholy smile that Kutuzov had done nothing but cause the emperor annoyance. "I have talked and talked at the assembly of the nobility," Prince Vasily interrupted, "but they did not listen to me. I told them his election as chief of the militia would not please the emperor. They did not listen to me." "It's all this mania for opposition," he went on. "And for who? It is all because we want to ape the foolish enthusiasms from these Muscovites," Prince Vasily continued, forgetting for a moment that, though at Helene's one had to ridicule the Moscow enthusiasm, at Anna Pavlovna's one had to be ecstatic about it. But he retrieved his mistake at once. "Now, is it suitable that Count Kutuzov, the oldest general in Russia, should preside at that tribunal? He will get nothing for his pains. How could they make a man commander-in-chief who cannot mount a horse, who drops asleep at a council, and has the very worst morals? A good reputation he made for himself at Bucharest. I don't speak of his capacity as a general, but at a time like this, how they appoint a decrepit, blind old man, positively blind? A fine idea to have a blind general. He can't see anything. To play blind man's bluff? He can't see at all." No one replied to his remarks. This was quite correct on the 24th of July. But on the 29th of July, Kutuzov received the title of prince. This might indicate a wish to get rid of him, and therefore Prince Vasily's opinion continued to be correct, though he was not now in any hurry to express it. But on the 8th of August, a committee consisting of Field Marshal Sartsikov, Arakcheyev, Yazamintov, Lupikin, and Kubier went to consider the progress of the war. This committee came to the conclusion that our failures were due to a want of unity in the command, and though the emperors of the committee were aware of the emperor's dislike of Kutuzov, after short deliberation, they agreed to advise his appointment as commander-in-chief. That same day, Kutuzov was appointed commander-in-chief with full powers over the armies, and over the whole region occupied by them. On the 9th of August, Prince Vasily at Anna Pavlovna's again met the man of great merit. The latter was very attentive to Anna Pavlovna, because he wanted to be appointed director of one of the educational establishments of the young ladies. Prince Vasily entered the room with an air of happy conqueror who has attained the object of his desires. "Well, have you heard the great news? Prince Kutuzov is a field marshal. All dissensions are at an end. I am so glad, so delighted. At last we have a man," said he, glancing sternly and significantly round at everyone in the drawing-room. The man of great merit, despite his desire to obtain the post of director, could not refrain from reminding Prince Vasily of his former opinion. Though this was impolite to Prince Vasily in Anna Pavlovna's drawing-room, and also to Anna Pavlovna herself, who had received the news with delight, he could not resist the temptation. "But, Prince, they say he is blind," said he, reminding Prince Vasily of his own words. Nonsense, he sees well enough," said Prince Vasily, rapidly, in a deep voice and with a slight cough, the voice and cough with which he was wont to dispose of all difficulties. "He sees well enough," he added. "And what am I so pleased about," he went on, "is that our sovereign has given him full powers over all the armies in the whole region, powers no commander-in-chief had ever had before. He is a second autocrat," he concluded with a victorious smile. "God grant it, God grant it," said Anna Pavlovna. The man of great merit, who was still a novice in court circles, wishing to flatter Anna Pavlovna by defending her former position on the question, observed, "It is said that the emperor was reluctant to give Kutuzov those powers. They say he blushed like a girl to whom Jacqueline is read, when he said to Kutuzov, 'Your emperor in the fatherland award you this honor.'" "Perhaps the heart took no part in that speech," said Anna Pavlovna. "Oh, no," warmly rejoined Prince Vasily, who would not now yield Kutuzov to anyone. In his opinion, Kutuzov was not only admirable himself, but was adored by everybody. "No, that's impossible," said he, "for our sovereign appreciated him so highly before." "God only grant that Prince Kutuzov assumes a real power, and does not allow anyone to put a spoke in his wheel," observed Anna Pavlovna. Understanding at once to whom she alluded, Prince Vasily said in a whisper, "I know for a fact that Kutuzov made it an absolute condition that the Tsarevich should not be with the army. Do you know what he said to the emperor?" And Prince Vasily repeated the words supposed to have been spoken by Kutuzov to the emperor. "I can neither punish him if he does wrong, nor reward him if he does right." "Oh, a very wise man is Prince Kutuzov. I have known him a long time." They even say, remarked the man of great merit, who did not yet possess courtly tact, that his excellency made it an express condition that the sovereign himself should not be with the army. As soon as he said this, both Prince Vasily and Anna Pavlovna turned away from him and glanced sadly at one another, with a sigh at his naivete. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 192. I hope you enjoyed it. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 192. Models. Napoleon's invasion brings civil war to Russia's high society as two competing factions emerge on either side of the social fault lines exposed by the belligerent Corsican's advance. We can call these the Russian faction and the French faction. Anna Pavlovna assumes a leadership role in the Russian faction and headquarters their group at her salons and soirees. Helene Bezukhova, on the other hand, hosts the French faction. Most of Petersburg chooses between the two. Some, however, seeking to split the difference and angle for position in whatever faction wins the day, tend to both. Our old friend Prince Vasily, duplicitous conniver that he is one of these split souls. The double role proves difficult for him to perform. Like an unprepared understudy, he consistently confuses his lines. He speaks in favor of the French while visiting Anna Pavlovna, and, conversely, with great patriotism while at Helene's salons. At one point, as the salons fills with talk of the possibility of a general being appointed to the Russian army, he criticizes Kutuzov's ability to fulfill that role. Vasily declares the old army man blind and decrepit. When Kutuzov, mere weeks later, is appointed commander-in-chief of the Russian army, however, Vasily totally changes his tune. Now, he's all praise for Kutuzov. He's ridiculed, deservedly, for this blatantly opportunistic shift in allegiance and opinion. We've seen Prince Vasily in a similar situation before. Think way back to when he aligned himself with Katich against Pierre in the battle for the Bezukhov fortune. Vasily lost that battle. His obvious inconsistencies and low character are on full display here as well. He does himself no benefit to act so perversely. It'd be much better if he were to find some model of behavior to pattern himself after. He might then be able to avoid these embarrassing situations. Daily meditation. When you are going to confer with anyone, and especially with one who seems your superior, represent to yourself how Socrates or Zeno would behave in such a case, and you will not be at a loss to meet properly whatever may occur. Epictetus and Charidion. And that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 192. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow we will be reading and reflecting on chapter 193. I hope you join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.